Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about hearing God's voice. I'm going to be talking about my experience with it and how to open your mind to hear God's voice, basically. Like, I always thought, like, when God will speak to you, it'd be kind of like, oh, this is, hi, my child, this is God, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I thought it was. And the reason why I thought it was like that was because that's how it was in the Bible, right? Like, most people, when God spoke to them, he spoke to them. As I started growing up, and then that's when I realized that that's not how God speaks. And the Bible says God speaks in different ways, basically. Like, God can speak to you through a dream. He can speak to you through like a post. He can speak through you through somebody else. It can speak to you in any way, like in all the ways, right? You have to be able to open your ears and be able to open your mind to listen. And that's what I learned a lot this year. Well, for the last 2 years, I learned to actually open my mind and listen when God's speaking to me, and when I see a message and try to, make sure, okay, I think that's God talking to me. I think the message is for me, The first time I heard God's voice, well, I'm not going to talk about the very first time, because there's so much to that scenario in itself that I'm not ready to, like, not necessarily not ready to share. There's so much on that scenario in itself that, like, that could be its own a whole video on just that. So I'm not gonna go into it right now because it's gonna make this video way too long. So I'm gonna talk about the second time I heard God's voice. So the second time I heard God's voice, I was at work. I was working, I was doing my stuff, fasting and doing all of that. And so one day, it's crazy, right? I'll tell you, right? So one day I was sitting there and I was, doing my work. And then I started hearing in my head. And they was saying stuff like it's crazy. He kept saying, vanity is vanity. Put your trust in me. Spread my gospel. I will bless you. I have a lot of plans for you. And, like, it was going in my head. It was saying it. And, like, as that was going on, I was thinking, I'm like, okay, what is this? Like, I'm kind of shook, Not that shook, because this was the second time it happened. Not as shook as I was the first time. But I was still kind of like, what is going on? And then I was thinking, I'm like, okay, maybe it's just my thoughts. But the thing is, the difference, okay, when you're hearing God's voice in your head, the difference between that and, like, you thinking is that when you're thinking about something, you can turn it off after. Like, you might be thinking, oh, okay, you might be thinking about something like, oh, what am I gonna eat, blah blah blah, and then you're like, okay, you know what, I'm done thinking about this. You can turn it off. Like, you can stop thinking about it and start thinking about something else. But when you're hearing God's voice in your head, you can't turn it off. It's not something you really can't turn it off. So I tried, right? Because I'm crazy like that. So I was like, okay, if it was that, I don't know if that was really God, but we're gonna test it. Let me start thinking about something, and let me see if I can, let me see how, like, if I can shut it down or what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? I wanted to test to see if it was my head just playing games with me, or if it was really God talking to me. Because you would, once you experience it, you will know that it's not the same. It's different. When God speaks to you, it's different than when you're just thinking for yourself, or when the devil's talking to you, or anything like that. So I had paused it for a minute, and then I was thinking, and I realized no, that wasn't me. It wasn't my thoughts. It really was God speaking to me. So that was that's one of the ways He'll speak to you. He'll actually, you think you're thinking, but you're not really thinking. It's God speaking to you. It's like, And another thing is, like, of course, we hear a lot of things in our heads. So how do you know if it's God speaking to you? How do you know it's not the devil that's putting the thoughts in your head? And the best way for me to really explain this is that, like, the devil will never lead you right. The devil will never tell you to do the right thing. The devil will never come to you in your head and tell you, oh, I'm going to bless you. Go spread the gospel. Or vanity is vanity. The devil will never come to you and say stuff like that to you in your head. What the devil will do is, like, say things that's gonna disappoint you, or tell you stuff like, oh, If God was real, then why is he putting you through this? You're never gonna amount to anything. Your life is sad, it's always gonna be sad. It's stuff like that that the devil will put in your head. And if you're still confused, like if you're at a point where you hear a voice in your head or saying things that you're not sure if it's God or if it's just the devil trying to trick you, you could always reference back to the Bible, because God will never tell you anything that goes against what he says in the Bible, ever. Like, God's not gonna come to you and say, oh, why don't you just, why don't you just kill yourself, or why don't you just kill this person, or why don't you just go steal that thing, lie about this. God will never come to you and tell you that, because that's against his commandment. And we all know God is a God of his word. He goes by his word. So anything that you're hearing in your head that does not match up with what's in the Bible, then you will know automatically that that's not God speaking to you. So another way that God can speak to you, the way that God's been speaking to me, whether you believe it or not, is through through Instagram, right? I'm not talking about like through Instagram. I'm gonna tell you what I mean through Instagram. Like, for lately, I've been like, whenever I go on Instagram, I'll see like a post. Like, I'll see a post that's God speaking to me. It's not just a post. Like, first of all, there's nothing random when it comes to God. Okay, nothing is just random. I don't randomly stumble upon a post. God wanted me to see that post. That's why. You know what I mean? So I don't disregard it ever. I never disregard it, because I'm just like, okay, I take that. That's the thing I'm talking about, being open-minded. I'm very open-minded, and I'm always looking to hear what God has to say to me. So for me, if I see a post, for you it might be like you might think, oh, that's a simple post, what is that, like whatever, and scroll past it. But for me, usually I'm just like, oh, that's God speaking to me. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to like grabs the message, basically. So I'm gonna read like one post that I had seen, because usually when I see it I screenshot it, because I'm just like, this junk crazy, right? So I'm gonna read one of the things that I had seen on Instagram lately that were just crazy. So I went on Instagram last time. I'll read like two, okay? I'll read two. The first one was, because lately what I've been the post, I'm gonna give you like a background story. Lately what I've been doing was, I think that I can, and praying to God to help me break whatever generational curse is in my family, is, whatever generational curse there is, And so all of a sudden I went on Instagram, checking Instagram, and this is what I seen a post saying, God, okay, it ran in your family until it ran into you. God says you've been anointed to break the cycle. Generational curses will stop with you. So when somebody else will see, if you see something like this, if your mind's not open to hearing God's voice, you will just be like, oh, okay, whatever, it's another quote. But when I seen this, that's when I knew, okay, God's speaking to me, because he's telling me that whatever generational curses I'm trying to break, I will break. It will stop with me. You know what I mean? So I'll read just another one, because these are just examples of like simple stuff you see that we ignore, but it's actually God speaking to us, So I'll read another one for you. And this one has to do with what I'm going through right now. I'm in a planting season. You know what I mean? This is where I'm planting. I haven't literally harvested what I'm planting yet, but like, I'm planting. But you know what happens is, when you're planting, and like, it takes a while for whatever it is that you're planting to grow. You can get really discouraged to the point where you want to just give up, because it seems like the seed that you're planting is just not growing, when really it's gonna grow. I'm planting, so I'm just thinking like, okay, I hope that I hope I'll harvest. And obviously, yeah, you'll harvest, but like, it's the patience and it's the peace to know that, okay, I will harvest. It's not for nothing. It's gonna take time to grow and stuff like that. So accepting that is hard. So then I went on Instagram. I was on Instagram one day, and I seen a post. Not one day, like literally yesterday, I think. And I seen a post, and this post said, wanting harvest when it isn't harvest season is dangerous. It might cause you to do things out of your character. Be content planting, even if you're planting for years. Respect the planting season and nurture your seeds for as long as required, and it'll manifest in the harvest once it comes. So to me, again, anybody else would have seen this and be like, oh, that's a nice quote and pass it. But for me, which is the reason why I screenshotted it, because this is the quote that I'll go back to me and telling me, yes, continue planting and you'll see. That one, and it's also another one that I kept saying where it's just like it's telling me that like I believe God's talking to me saying to keep planting. The one that I seen was another one that I seen was the one that said, fall in love with the process and the results will come. And that's that one is almost the same as the one I had read before. So it's way. And another thing is basically situations. God speaks to us also through situations. So you can't find your purpose, you can't find your joy, you can't find the peace of mind, you can't find any of that if you're not looking at God, if you're not listening to God, if you're looking at the wrong places, if you're still in that bag, if you're in your bag and not attentive to God, you won't find what you're looking for. Because as soon as situations in life that we go through, and I feel like a lot of us, instead of trying to figure out, okay, God's trying to tell me something through this situation, God's speaking to us through this situations. Like we're praying and praying, God, speak to me, speak to me, speak to me. And then a situation like this happen, or you see a post like this on Instagram, or you have a thought in your head, but you're just like, yeah, that can't be God. Because I feel like we think that God's speaking to us, it has to be like some type of magical, like some type of craziness happening for God to speak to us, but that's not true, you know. So yeah, that's it. So that's it for this video. I hear the little voice in your head. Don't ignore situations, good or bad. Don't ignore, like, try to figure out what message, you know, what's the message between every situation. Try to figure out, you know, what is that voice in your head telling you, like, what is it, you know what I mean? And try to figure out, like, if you're on social media, whatever it is, you might see a post. You know, it's not obviously not all the posts are speaking directly too. Not all the posts are messages from God. You know what I mean? But like, if there's a post that you see or that you keep seeing, or there's a word in your head that you keep hearing over and over again, you might want to look into it, because that might be God trying to speak to you or trying to tell you something about your situation or about somebody else's situation. Or thank you guys so much for watching. You comment if you have if there's any questions or stuff that you didn't understand, or you think that God was speaking to you but you don't know, you could just leave the comment down below. And if you don't feel comfortable leaving the comment, you can just send me a DM on Instagram. I'll put my Instagram down below, and I'll put my Instagram down below. And yeah, you can subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.